DJ Zeph. You just checked me out live in the mix. You're watching Oakland TV. It's 2007. It's time to rise up. I think I really became a DJ by accident, actually, because music was always around me when I was a kid in my house growing up. My dad was always listening to shit like Stevie Wonder, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Cat Stevens, Aretha Franklin. That was a lot of the stuff I remember growing up around. I'm sure all that stuff was a bit old by the time I was hearing it, but it was still the stuff that made the biggest impression on me. The skill of DJing is really something that I first learned by watching other cats that were in Santa Cruz and other like Central California DJs, like the Salinas area in particular was happening. They had this DJ by the name of Bubba G. Scotch, and closer to my crib in Santa Cruz they had Cutmaster Kurt. And those were really the first cats that I saw and really understood what the skill of being a DJ was. And Bubba G. Scotch, he had this way of talking on the microphone that was just infectious. You couldn't deny it. Like if you were in the building, his way of speaking to you just got you off the wall. Okay, now scratching is kind of a whole other story. The first cats that I think I really saw break down scratching was when I would see Qbert in battles first, and then I would go to his house because he's another Bay Area local cat. He lived in San Francisco, and that was at a time when I felt like the status quo skill of DJing was really on it had a lot of velocity behind it at that moment, and maybe some of that has kind of fizzled out, but those skills are still present. You still know, when you hear a DJ do something that has some skills. But Qbert was really the first one that I saw break down what the individual scratch patterns were. As far as hip-hop production is concerned, this is kind of the evolution as far as I've noticed it. The very first hip-hop was basically live band or live disco band oriented. It might have been edits or cuts and pastes, but they were definitely utilizing the break format of that. Grandmaster Flash came along and he was playing the beatbox alive with the Furious 5, and that kind of really introduced the drum machine heavy element, which was maybe like the early to mid 80s sound of it, the 808, the stuff that like cats like Molly Mall and Mantronics and guys like that were really maximizing those sounds and getting more sounds out of those drum machines and those pieces of equipment than anybody else was really getting out. And it turned really sparse. The music before, in the disco era sounded like disco. It had live bass, horn section and all that. And then in the mid 80s it got really raw and drum machine, oriented. Run DMC, another great example. And Run DMC kind of pushed that element of like the edgier side of it. And I think that really kind of led to the combination of instruments, really, because they would have rock and roll and groups like Aerosmith involved, and that kind of turned into the Beastie Boys that went from one album of all drum machine to another album of all samples to another album of all live music. And those guys were really big in the hip-hop scene. And sampling, late 80s, it just turned into like lots of sampling, lots of looping, lots of big things being taken from cats like James Brown, and people stopped wanting to use samples. It was becoming more commercial, and so there needed to be a reason to sell music without being sued or even coming close to being sued. And really a lot of the early stuff that people were making or playing was pretty simple in musical terms, and now it's really gone full circle to the point where hip-hop is fueling all the modern day productions that you hear, and anything from the most sophisticated music that you hear has some elements of hip-hop in it, down to hip-hop being a very raw, just kick and snare and microphone and a turntable. And it's really gone full circle where anything goes today. Check for us on tour, coming to a city near you. It's DJ Zeph and Azim, and we got an album on Ohm Hip Hop. It's called Rise Up. Came out 2007. You gotta cop that. It's a summertime classic.
Se acabó